Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment or question comes from Jack and Jill Marley, 1988. I think the guy's name is Richard, if I remember correctly. And this was in connection with the SY77 Restoration Part 2, Accessing the Circuitry, a video I did in December 2023. Richard writes, it's a bit of an inconvenience having to remove the mainboard just to get to take out the CR2032 battery. And it's questionable why Yamaha designed their synthesizers like this. At least Roland thought to put the battery in a holder on the mainboard, and at least you could prise it out easily with the tip of a screwdriver. That doesn't mean poke it in. All you did was you just depressed it with a screwdriver and the battery popped up and out it came. One possible reason why companies fitted the batteries this way is because at the time they assumed only a qualified dealer would be changing the battery. I hope Korg didn't solder the battery directly onto the mainboard, which is unfortunately possible as Korg was part owned by Yamaha at the time in the 1990s, and Yamaha also supplied Korg with some of the parts for the M1. Well, I can tell you in both the M1 and T1 they weren't soldered to the batteries, soldered to the board, but in earlier Korg machines they were indeed. So if you go back to some of the DW synths that were released earlier to the M1, they were soldered, and that was probably... Was that probably a Yamaha influence? Not sure. The batteries changed between probably in the early 80s, and they moved away from these kind of sort of Varta oval round batteries to the coin cell batteries. And I think that was kind of just an evolution of technology. But why Yamaha did what they did, I don't know. I do think it was a strategy to discourage the DIYer from opening up the synth to perform this rather simple operation. I think if they put the battery holder in a position and therefore stated, as you stated, young musicians to use an authorised service centre. But, you know, it is what it is. They did it, and now we have to deal with it. And in some instances it requires a little bit more surgery, like you would have seen if you watched the Yamaha series, where I actually drilled a hole into the circuit board to allow me to mount a holder, because the holes, as I said, the problem you have, and I did a lot of looking for them, is to find a battery holder that actually had a 16mm diameter gap between pin 1 and pin 2, which is what the Soldertag allowed you to do. It allowed you to bend the pins to put them in, but you couldn't do that. You can't do that with a battery holder. A battery holder is kind of a certain diameter, and for the CR2032 battery, all the battery holders seem to be reporting a 19.5 20mm distance between the two pins, and the distance on the board was only 16mm. So you've got a 4mm gap to bridge effectively, and the only easy way to do that on the Yamaha 77 was to actually drill a new hole. Carefully drill a very small new hole through the circuit board, and then make a new contact. And you are able to do that with the 77, because if you look at how the 77 was laid out, the actual earth or the second pin goes into a big patch of copper, and that big patch of copper actually has a space to be able to do that. Okay, so I said it in the video, I do not recommend ever doing this unless you really have to. And in this case, in order to get the battery holder onto the circuit board and properly mounted on the circuit board, that was the easiest way to do it. Now, there's probably lots of people who will watch that and go, "Ah, no, you didn't do this, that, and the other." And there are other things I could have done, but if I'm honest, that was the easiest thing, and it's probably the most sustainable solution going forward. And when I get to open the SY99, I probably will have to do the same. Anyway, thank you very much for your question. Next question comes from Off the Matrix 5310. This was in response to, I don't have what it was in response to, but I suspect it was something to do with the DX7. Anyway, Off the Matrix writes, I noticed that my FM patches sound brighter when played on the Mod 7 engine on the Korg Kronos than it did on the DX7. The TX802 from the 80s has a larger play for programming DX7. I think it's larger display for programming DX7 patches. Thanks. Oh, quite short. Now, one of the things you've got to realise that the Mod 7 engine on the Korg Kronos will allow you to load DX7 patches. Many people don't know that, but it will allow you to load DX7 patches. But the Mod 7 engine is a different rendering of FM than the DX7 engine is, right? So it does it in a slightly different way. Yes, I know FM is a mathematical calculation, but how you render the sound as it comes out of that mathematical combination will be different on the Korg Kronos than it is on the DX7. And that probably is the reason why it's not an emulation, it's a reconstruction, and it builds the tone slightly differently, which is why you therefore get a slightly different sound. So it is an approximation, is the way I would put it, but it still gives you a DX7 FM patch. Then Off the Matrix comes back and says, here in Brazil, I don't know what's going on here. I think that was the previous one. Anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about here in Brazil, because here in Brazil is the wrong question. Anyway, that was that. And yeah, it is. While you can load the SysX, you won't get the same sound. You have to bear that in mind.